Why is it some bands or groups or artists or whatever you want to call them are still relevant even though they've been around for a long time, and yet other bands I sometimes think, why are they still bothering? Why are they still bothering to make albums? Yeah, go out live, play your old hits, but why try and write any new music? Who really wants to know? Now, I'm sure some people will say they do want to know, but they're wrong, because what I've done on this video is I am going to come up with 10 groups, artists, bands, whatever you want to call them. The first 5 are going to be bands which I think are irrelevant. And they're going to be bands that some of you like and probably buy their new albums by, but I'm going to say, what's the point? And I'm going to give my reasons of what's the point. But then I'm going to go through 5 just to show I'm not just a grumpy old curmudgeon just dealing in negativity on this channel. I'm going to go through 5 who have been around for ages, but I think are still relevant and I would consider buying their new album. Okay, so shall we just get straight into this, right? The first band that I think have become irrelevant, and I hate to say it, I hate to say this. This is what you've come for, is for Andy's contentious comments, which will upset you. All right. It's Deep Purple. All right. Now, Deep Purple, they're all now approaching 80 years old. All right, not 70. 80 years old. 80 years old. That's unbelievably old. Ian Gillan is going to be 81 this year. Old Ian Gillan. Now, Deep Purple, I feel there was always a thing there that the band really was Richie Blackmore. Let's just say, now we can argue against that, can't we? Tommy Bolin came in, they did a great album, and then, then they stopped doing their stuff, and then they came back with Richie Blackmore. He was in the band. And then he went and they got the great Steve Morse in. Well, at that point, I was like, me personally, I was like, oh, that's it now. I'm not following them anymore. Right? Even though I love Steve Morse. And Steve Morse was in it for eons and eons until he got old. And then he went. But the core group of Ian Gillan and Ian Pace, they're still there. But nobody else is. And Roger Glover, yeah. But he doesn't really matter, does he, Roger Glover? I met Roger Glover once backstage at a gig and had a very long conversation. He was a very lovely man. But again, I think he's 80 this year. Ian Pace is the youngster of the band. I think he was born in 1948, so he'll be 78, won't he? 78 years old. So that trio is what is justifying it being called Deep Purple. We've got Don Airey. Now, Don Airey, I mean, you could have him in any band and say, that he was an original member or former member, because he's played with absolutely bloody everybody, Don Airey has. And then they got this new chap on guitar. Now, when Steve Morse came in, at least he was a mind-blowing guitarist that could play Richie Blackmore into a cocktat, But this new guy isn't like that. He just sounds like... I don't want to criticise people. That's what you do, isn't it? He's all right. He just sounds like a bog-standard sort of guitarist you get in a tribute band. There's nothing special about him. Now, if they got Malmsteen in... Bloody hell. But of course, Malmsteen, his fiery temperament, he's even worse than Blackmore, so him and Gillan aren't going to get on. But Malmsteen would have been my choice, I think, in that band. Or maybe, how about Uli John Roth? So I think if they got someone of that stature in to really come and take that place that Richie Blackmore once had, I would probably still be interested. Now, they have done... Since Blackmore went, they've had all this revolving door. Eons have passed, literally eons. Like, compared to the initial Deep Purple period from 68 to 76, which was 8 years. This period after Blackmore goes, the eons, it's like eons. It's like an age. It's like, you're going back and you're finding out that Treebeard was in the band at a certain point. It's such a long time that's passed. And they have regularly chugged, an album out. Now... what's happened is that I come along and I go, I love Deep Purple, right? And I haven't got all the albums, but I've got most of them. Which albums haven't I got? The studio albums now of the proper Deep Purple. I think it's just the first three I haven't got. Everything from Deep Purple in rock, or even Concerto for Rock Orchestra and whatever it is. I've got all of those. I'm happy with that. Now, I might go and splash out on The Perfect Stranger, their comeback album. It is pretty good. It was a return to form. They were only in their like bloody late 30s, early 40s at that point. So they could still, you know, cut a rug. But since then, they've churned album after album after album after album. So now you've got the original albums here, and then this great big wodge of albums, of which I know nothing. Now, some of you hardcore Purple fans have probably kept up, and every year or every 2 years, they come out with the next album, and it comes out, and you go, it's a return to form. And it is because, and this is the problem I have with these irrelevant bands. A band becomes irrelevant when this happens, right? They can't do something new because the only option they have is to sound exactly like classic Deep Purple. They can't sound like Come Taste the Band Deep Purple. They can't sound like even Steve Morse era Deep Purple, which is now an eon ago. They have to sound like Ian Gillan, Roundabout Machine Head Deep Purple. That's what they have to do. Not Stormbringer Deep Purple. It has to be around that. And so they are churning out very, you know, competent copies of Deep Purple circa 1973 because they are Deep Purple. I mean, it's not hard, is it, to churn out what you've done before? Except the only thing now is, rather than Ian Gillan boasting about his sort of conquests in the bedroom, which was the early, mainly the only subject matter of Deep Purple in the early days. Now he's just moaning about old sods or useless twats and or bloody lazy buggers. I mean, he's decided that the way that Deep Purple can be edgy when they're 80s is by employing sort of 1950s swear words in the titles of their songs. I do it as well on this all the time. Always bloody this, bugger that, oh sod this, sod that. You know, now when I was a kid, they were proper swear words, and if you did say those, your mum would hit you around the head with something hard like a wooden spoon and then wash your mouth out with soap. Right, but now you can say these things willy-nilly. You can even say willy-nilly if you want to. So Deep Purple, I think the problem they've got, they establish this idea that they can't do right for doing wrong. If they just went in, see, what do I want from Deep Purple now? Well, they're jazz fusion guys, they always were, and Don Airy's a monster. Can't they just go in and do some real funky, fiery fusion with Don Airy doing a whole bunch of bloody Moog keyboard solos, incredible cutting organ solos? You know, I mean, they did one of their tunes in a jazz style once. It was like on some sound check, and it was amazing. Can't they do something like that? But of course, if they do, everyone's going to hate it. Right, so we now move on to the next band, and this is very similar, I think. Very similar criticisms can be levelled at this band, except Ian Gillan, right? Ian Gillan, I felt, never had a great voice. He had a high voice, he had a screamy voice, he could scream with the best of them, but he really was screaming, wasn't it? You know, he would basically do that, you know. He's like Child in Time. There's all these videos on the net of vocal teachers marvelling at Child in Time. That's the top. I mean, he is higher than me. I'm not saying he can't. I'm saying he can go bloody higher than me, but the quality of the vocals sounds like this. And the other thing I couldn't stick with Ian Gillan, and I love Ian Gillan. I love his music, especially the band Gillan. I love the band Gillan. Gillan was a great band, and I think this is what niggles me a little bit, because he leaves. He forms Gillan. They're bloody amazing band. They do one great album after the other. Magic, Double Trouble, Future Shock, amazing albums. And then suddenly, Blackmore, who supposedly doesn't like, goes, oh, Ian, I might form Deep Purple. Oh, Richie, wait for me. Right, so, but Ian Gillan has decided to eschew at 8 years old that, remember that on Made in Japan? This is why I can't say that Made in Japan is the greatest live album, because it's got an hour or an age. That's the key word today, is age. It's got, oh God, I can't say, it's like bloody, is it Woody Woodpecker? Right, they banned bloody Woody Woodpecker, didn't they? They banned Woody Woodpecker because they thought it was unkind to people who were like a bit, mental. Crazy people. Insane. The insane. The insane do not sit around getting worried that people are like, besmirching them as an identity group. They just don't care. They're just thinking of the next person they're going to axe. Right, so Deep Purple. Now, as I was trying to explain very badly, Gillan, I think, has negotiated old age with his voice very well on this new stuff. It's very listenable. I always enjoy a new Deep Purple track when it comes out. I always watch the video. You know what you're going to get? White background, right? White background, cutting between all of them, one after time, and then a band shot. And then now I think what they do is they all turn up, they got all the food laid on. They just do a few minutes of band shots and then anyone can sit around and then they go and do their parts. So you can just see how it's like a bloody production line. But I always enjoy them, but I just don't need them because I feel they're added to the oeuvre of Deep Purple. I don't want it added to. I don't want to know there's another Deep Purple album I know nothing about. I'd rather them just do it under another name or not do it. But he can still sing. Now, of course, we now move on to Jethro Tull. Now, Jethro Tull, I reviewed their last album. Same thing. Jethro Tull had a perfect run of albums in the 70s. Incredible. Very signature sound. All around Ian Anderson. So it's all Ian Anderson, really. I mean, really. It's not like Deep Purple, where you have to have Ian Pace. You have to have bloody, John Lord. That's the band. You can swap it around, but they're going to be doing impersonations of those musicians if you do it. But with Jethro Tull, I do strongly think that you can, sack off a whole bunch of musicians. Martin Barr was very important to the sound, without a doubt. Glenn Cornick in the other days had a lot of charisma, an approach to the bass that was unique. But they all went, and Jethro Tull kept going. Because the sound of the flute in Ian Anderson's signature vocals is a wonderful thing to behold. Once they get to the 80s, he starts to mess with the style as he goes off. People aren't so happy with it. But I feel that what's happened again with Jethro Tull is they've returned. They have returned to their signature style. Now, the last great album I think they produced was their Christmas album because it was different. Now, with this one, I love Jethro Tull and I love Ian Anderson, but obviously he's having trouble singing. This is no, this is no secret amongst the progressive rock. I mean, he really can't sing at all, So I think for them to keep going, he needs to move over to the flute, which is still incredible. Now, what I love about Jethro Tull is the rocking flute, bluesy English folk madness. That's what I love. They do that well now. But I feel the band's a little bit workmanlike. So if I was Ian Anderson, if he's watching this, sack your band. Sack them all off and get some more exciting players in. I am sat here as a progressive rock drummer of some note. And I could do that job. I'm a huge fan of Barrymore Barlow. I can never do I've never do a job like him. And Clive Bunker, a wonderful drummer. I used to play in a band in the old days, and my dep was Clive Bunker. So that would also rebalance the grand scheme in the universe and maybe get Jethro Tull more at one with the sort of forces of creativity that are out there. This is only my advice to Ian Anderson. Then what I would do, right, this is the clever bit, he needs to stop singing. Well, who are you going to get in? Who could sound like Ian Anderson? Right? Nobody can. There's no point. And if somebody comes in, he's got such a distinctive voice, sailing away on the nice of the new day. But at least I could hit the notes, which is more than Ian could do. That's the situation we're in. Now, what he needs to do, and this is always the get out of jail for any prog band once they get to a certain thing. And I noticed that Linkin Park have done this as well. That, when Chester Bennington said, what are we going to do? What you do is you get a girl in. Yes, you get a girl in. You get some lovely folk singer in. Maybe she can play a bit of violin or something like that. Nice swishy dresses, old English sort of medieval maid, that type of stuff. We're all a sucker for those, aren't we? There'd be nothing better for us English gentlemen than to be able to go for a sup in a medieval tavern and be served by a wench That is who Ian Anderson needs to go. Ian, listen, go and get yourself a wench. We need a wench up front. If you do that, everyone's going to be back interested. Am I wrong? Come on. And normally it's all negative and I don't give advice, but I am I have been known to give relatively useful advice, haven't I? So let's move on to number 3 on here. Number 3 is the Rolling Stones, right? You've got the Beatles and the Stones. The Beatles are precious. 2 of them have gone. We've only got Ringo and Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney comes out with an album. It was one track with Ringo, and we were like, oh, bloody hell, it's all for the Beatles. I can't believe it. Oh, it's so good to see them together. They don't quite look like they are together. They look like being put together by computer graphics and AI. But no, that's not the problem. Oh, we love it. We love it. Can't they do some AI John Lennon and George Harrison? Can't we have the Beatles back again? I want new material by the Beatles. We'll slaver over anything they ever do. Rolling Stones have got a new album back. Yeah, I know. Now, the Rolling Stones, we should be speaking about them in the same breath as the Beatles. They should be special. But no, they have besmirched. They have besmirched their legacy as one of probably the second greatest band of all time. Now, I'm not a fan of the Beatles, as you know, but, they're great songs I love, like everybody else. But what we have now, let's go through it bit by bit, right? Charlie Watts, dead, right? So he's gone. So they got Steve Jordan in, monster jazz fusion drummer. Bill Wyman. Well, Bill Wyman's still alive. God knows that. He's about 90. I think he was a chain smoker. And of course, Bill Wyman is probably, as apart from being the bass player in the Rolling Stones, he's most famous for, having a... so Bill Wyman, he's... that about Bill Wyman. I don't get it. I mean, in the old days, he'd be in like bloody some, Sunday Times or something like this, and he'd be there with his... and she'd be like, and it's like no one said a word. I don't know, but I mean, what do you do? I mean, it was right there, everybody, I mean, it was mad, wasn't it? Wasn't it, old Bill Wyman? I mean, it's like, I've done that, So Bill Wyman, I think he's 90 now, and there he is. I mean, let's say, for someone who's not a particularly great bass player, and he's not a particularly good-looking bloke, and doesn't seem to have any charisma at all, he's done all right for himself, I think. So, yeah, so he's there. Keith Richards is still going, isn't he? And all those memes about how old he is, that's funny, that is. Oh, I do laugh at those. He's still going. He fell out of a tree one day, God knows what he was doing up a tree at his age, but he fell out of it, survived, So he's got this reputation that you can't kill him, like Terminator. And he's really old. He's been around since... He's not even as old as Mick, but for some reason he looks really old. I always think he's ended up looking a little bit like Patricia Hayes. You remember Tony Hancock's Char Lady? Now, I remember a few years ago, many years ago in fact, it would probably have been about 30 years ago, catching a train from Wolverhampton up to Telford. And they were standing room only, and I was stood next to Patricia Hayes. And you probably don't know this, but I have an almost encyclopedic knowledge of British film stars and British films. So I found that very, very interesting. And I've offered it to you here, that I would rather be talking about Patricia Hayes than Keith Richards. But she's gone, she's dead. Although Keith isn't. So who else have we got? Oh yeah, they went and got Darryl Jones in, and I did some jokes the other day. I felt bad because Darryl Jones was initially the bass player in Miles Davis's band, then he joined Sting's band, and then he sold out and became a schlepping session musician for anybody who go him. And there he is, playing his root notes all night and eating too much of the bloody rider because he's got put on a bit of weight. Old Darryl is, So I mean, is this the bloody Rolling Stones? But what they have got is Mick. A force of nature, Mick Jagger. There he is, 100 years old, and still able to jump around, dance. He's got no. I mean, I'm 58 years old, and some of you may have noticed this recently. If you go back to the old videos, I didn't have it, but I'm getting a little bit of timber here, and I don't know how to get rid of it. All the usual ways I get rid of it aren't working, and sometimes I'll shoot a video and it looks like, bloody hell, Andy, what you got doing down there? Now I'm imagining at 58. By the time I get, in 40 years' time, when I get, anywhere near Mick's age, what am I going to look like? I'm going to look like Darryl Jones. Now, what is he doing to keep himself so fit, old Mick? What's he doing? So the Rolling Stones, they're like a juggernaut. They go out, play every year, sell the tickets, you know. They're not relevant, right? That's it. How will they end? It will be like a slow death, brought on by actual death. And we know Mick, being so bloody fit, will probably end up being the oldest man in the world. Can you imagine Mick? I mean, everyone goes on about Keith Richards, but Mick, he just keeps going, doesn't he? Right, the next one on this list, number 4, how long will it be? 20 minutes. You really, I mean, don't worry, when I get to the ones who are relevant, I'll rush through those. I'll just spend my time on the irrelevant ones, because that's where the silliness is, and that's where I can, you know, extemporize around this idea of irrelevancy. And I've done really good so far, because I haven't mispronounced irrelevant. It's relevant I have a problem with, because I want to say revenant. I want to say this band's really revenant, not relevant. Now, Revenant, of course, is that film with Leonardo DiCaprio, another chap that's well known for going off with the younger ladies, you know, bit of a theme coming through this, you know. But he is let off, I think, because he's such a brilliant actor. Now, I have to throw this in here, though, even though it's irrelevant, right? Everyone said he acted really good in The Revenant, right? Now, there wasn't much dialogue in there, so most of the time, all he had to do was act cold when he was in something that was cold, like cold water or the snow. I can bloody do that. I mean, I can act cold if it's cold, right? I can act cold when it's not cold. Watch. Oh, God. Bloody hell, there's a wind coming in through here. Bloody hell. This is freezing. Who's opened the door? God, I'm shivering. It's just, oh, it's so cold, isn't it? See, I mean, do I get a bloody let off going off with the younger women? Not that I ever would, you know, not a man of my age with my portly stature. No, never going to happen. But there he is, Leonardo DiCaprio, acting cold, in the cold. Oh, is he bloody good? Now he's running, and he's acting like he's running, and then being puffed when he's running. Oh, isn't he really good? Now he's been attacked by a bear, but he wasn't attacked by a bear. That's all CGI. Oh, isn't he really good? Now he's climbing inside some animal to keep warm, like bloody Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back. Oh, isn't he really good? I hate bloody Leonardo DiCaprio. What the hell do we have to have him for? I can't stick him. I mean, these people I all like. Deep Purple I like. Jethro Tull I like. Rolling Stones are okay. And the next band on the list, I like Red Hot Chili Peppers, but again, I mean, the thing with the Red Hot Chili Peppers is they start off like bloody 40, nearly 50 years ago they started off. 50 years ago, young lads start naked on stage, cocks in socks, if I can say such a thing at this hour, you know, jumping around, singing songs about having parties on certain anatomies on ladies, you know, all sorts of stuff, you know, telling us all about Catholic schoolgirls. Now they rule. There they were, just a nice party band, combining a bit of funk and a bit of punk, and it was all a nice, jolly, happy, you know, let's just, you know, jump up and down, have a good time, and be like misogynists. That was great. I mean, that was how they started off, and then slowly, right, there they are enjoying themselves. All these women are coming in. I mean, Kiedis is a bit, well, he's, I mean, again, you know, maybe maybe this is what it is, you know, but, you know, Kiedis, I don't want to go there really. I mean, if you read Scar Tissue, I have, bloody hell. I mean, why does nobody do anything about it? You know, I don't know. It's one of those things. But anyway, there they are. Got all the ladies at their disposal. They're drinking. They're taking loads of drugs. Injecting heroin left, right and centre. There. Oh, bloody hell. Should we get a bit of all the heroin? Oh, I love it. I do. It's really great, you know. Oh, I do enjoy a bit of heroin. I do. You know, we're really partying. We're doing all the stuff we like. We do whatever we want. You know, but my favourite thing of all of it is the bloody heroin. I love the heroin. Oh, I know. It's very Moorish, isn't it? Once you start start, you can't stop. I know, it's worse than a bloody one of them tube of Pringles, isn't it? I mean, the other day I was eating some Pringles and injecting heroin. Now, I've got to be honest, I thought, Pringles, heroin, Pringles, I'm having the heroin, you know. Now, it's not a joking matter because one of their members dies and John Frusciante goes off the thing. And then they get mopey, don't they? Now, I don't like this about them. They are having a good time. It's their business. Carry on singing all the nice chirpy stuff that makes me happy. If I want something depressing, I'll go somewhere else for depressing, like Chris Cornell or somebody like that. I don't want you, Red Hot Chili Peppers, getting depressing on me. And then when you do get depressing, then try and go back to doing your nice, funny, like chirpy songs. They're not quite as chirpy because you've all got mopey. And it's like Flea's all right. He's okay. He's like bouncing back, you know, like Tigger. He's like the Tigger of the band, you know. But bloody Kiedis has gone. He's become the donkey in Winnie the Pooh terms in time of that. And then they just get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And every couple of years they have to bring a new album out. And I really am not interested. No one's interested in your new albums, Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're not interested. You have turned into everything that you were against when you first started. It's an awful thing, you know. I watched your film about Hillel. I watched it on Netflix, you know, and I enjoyed it. Do make some films or do something else like that, you know. Chad Smith pretending he's Will Ferrell. All that's good. I like all of that. Just do all of that stuff, but no more music. Come on, you all agree with me, don't you? I mean, this is where I'm smacker. There's nobody watching this video now. Please, if you are waiting for the next Red Hot Chili Peppers album, put it in the comments. No one will say it. You know, come on, kiddies and chaps. Listen to what I'm saying, right? Do other stuff, you know. Do some other stuff, you know, some comedy, maybe a sitcom, I don't know, whatever, but just don't make any more music, especially the mopey stuff, when you moan about how bad it is being a millionaire and having to take drugs all the time, because we're not interested, right? We're not interested. As normal people, we don't get a chance to take heroin, well, like you lot. You know, if we take heroin, what happens then? We're just on the bloody streets, aren't we? Begging for stuff. Could have some money, could I want to buy some heroin, really? You know, all bloody down and out. And then we probably get on fentanyl or something like that, you know. The bloody drugs problem out there. It's different when you got a ton of money. You can do it at home all nice, can't you? You know, all comfy, you know. All lovely and comfy, you know. It's like they should just stop going on about it. It gets on my nerves. Right, so the last one is the most irrelevant band on the planet. They've got a new album out. And the reason why I did this video is because I thought, as a bloody music YouTuber with a progressive rock slant, that I should review the new Yes album, which is called Aura. Aura. Aurora? Is it Aurora? Or is it Aura? I think it's Aurora. I don't even know what it's called, right? I'm going to put that on the title, right? Because I did a Paul McCartney review last week and it bloody went mad. Everyone watched it. They all loved it. Oh, you've done the best review on the internet. Of course I've done the best bloody review on the internet. When I get serious and I do some proper music critique, nobody can touch me. I'm still bloody relevant. I'm always going to be relevant doing this, you know. But you have to understand that for me to give such incisive bloody a critique of music, as I sometimes do, I also have to come on here and show off that I can just impart almost like the sort of, you know, reactionary middle-aged man viewpoint, you know, what you all really thinking. It's one thing sitting there and waxing lyrically and being all erudite and being intelligent, right? But that's not enough. Not if you want to critique music properly. You've got to get down to what people really think, and I know what you lot are thinking, right? And you're thinking this: Yes, I've got a new album out. Roger Dean's done the cover. It's drawing me in. But I know it's always like Yes Light, L-I-T-E, Yes Light. But that's not the worst of it. I was going to review this album, right? Do you know the difference between today's Yes and the old Yes with John Anderson? The difference is John Anderson. Now, I can sit here and say the obvious bloody thing, right? I could say that this album is okay. You know, they're doing their thing. Steve Howe's taking over, so there's not much keyboards on there. We can say all the stuff that everybody's going to say, right? I can say it too. It's all bloody obvious, right? Everybody's said it. All the sort of lesser YouTubers out there, they're all bloody clamouring to review this so the proggers could have it. And it's clickbait. Wonder what so-and-so says. I wonder what so-and-so says. I haven't done it like that. Please don't. It's what I've done is deal with the issue of relevancy. Here we are. Halfway mark. Look at the time. Exactly 30 minutes in, halfway mark on one of my videos, because I normally do an hour. And here we are at the apex of the video before we slide down the other side. And where have I got to? I'm dealing with Yes here, one of my favourite bands, and I'm dealing with the thorny issue of Yes. Unlike anybody else on here, I've cracked a few jokes, I've made you laugh, maybe I've upset you, maybe I was a bit politically incorrect, but that was all deliberate. The journey to this apex here of the mountain, the journey to the top here, we've climbed up here, right? And I'm not going to say what everybody else says. I am going to boil it down to why these Yes albums aren't as good as the old Yes albums. In fact, why they are irrelevant. I'm going to do it now, and I'm going to tell you straight, and then you can go away and mull it over and see whether I'm right. Because the reason why I didn't do the review is because it's a one-sentence bloody assessment of Aurora by Yes. And it goes to all the other albums. In fact, it goes to the last how many albums they've done since John Anderson went. And when John Anderson came out with that True album that he did, it was full of this thing, and this album isn't. And it's not John Anderson. That bloke who's doing an impersonation of him, he's got a high voice, hasn't he? That's it, you know. The problem with modern Yes is where on the old album, with all the virtuosity and arrangement, was unbelievable tunes. There's no tunes here. Have a listen. And without the tunes, it just turns into twiddle and twaddle. And that is the problem with this album. This is the serious part of it. Okay, why? Because people who make bands successful, in the end, whatever the band, even if it's out there, is the tunes. And not everybody can write a tune. There are hundreds of shit prog bands out there. And these prog bands have in them people who have normal jobs. And they love Yes and Genesis, and they're competent players. And they go out on the weekend and they play various prog festivals, and one of them will man their Facebook, you know, and they try and do it as well as they can, and they're organised middle-aged gentlemen, so they know what they're doing. But the reason why these bands aren't the same is because those guys can't write a tune. Writing a tune is unbelievably hard. Some bands get away with not being able to write tunes, and they're amazing bands. But Yes is an example of one of those bands. Yes, like Queen, are dependent on incredible tunes. Right? And we aren't getting them. And because there's been some criticism, because Steve Howe's an old man now and he's writing stuff that is a little bit quieter and more introverted, and people going, well, it's all a bit boring. They've amped it up on this album. They've amped it all up. And what do we get? Unbelievable levels of complexity. They can play. It's all over the place. And maybe there's a contingent of progressive rock fans that's enough to impress them, but it doesn't impress me, I'm afraid. Where's the tunes? I'll be the roundabout. I wanna make you out of that. I see the day you're away. Ding 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 ding. On and body about it, in and out the valley. It's cool. It's boppy. Soon, oh, soon the night. On the night. You know, absolutely. And you and I on the valley. Hard tune to sing, actually. And you and I, all beautiful. I could go on. I and on. I tried to do Soon. I thought, do a weird one for them after the most famous one. All incredible tunes, right? That's what makes you relevant, is tunes. Great tunes. Write some bloody tunes, yes. Right, so just to prove that I am not just a grumpy old man saying that everything that's new I don't like and every old band is irrelevant. What do you like then, Andy? What do you like? Well, what I like are these bands here. And these are all old people still doing something that I find interesting. We're going to run through these 5 pretty quick now, because I don't want to be going up to the hour. I've said my bit. That was my review. This was a secret review of the new Yes album, Aurora. That's what this really is. Right, so just to prove it's about the tunes, I have at number 1 on my relevant bands that are old and been around for a long time, I've got Cardiacs. Now, Cardiacs have come back. They've done an album. Everybody's loved it. It's been universally loved. And they've gone out and tour. And they've been as successful as the Cardiacs ever has been. And this is wonderful because the Cardiacs, or Cardiacs, I always call them the Cardiacs. Don't call them the Cardiacs. That shows you're not a Cardiacs fan. Cardiacs, everybody. Cardiacs was Tim Smith, and Tim Smith died. And Tim Smith was not able to really work on anything because he was very ill for a long time. They have been able to go back to songs that he worked on, and the spirit of him comes through. Right, this is what I'm saying about John Anderson. That spirit, sometimes it can just come through the music, through ideas that were probably forged 20 years ago. It's come through. And there is a need and a want. You know why? Because Cardiacs, there's a certain amount of stuff there. And that makes it of worth. So when they have a new album out and then they go out and they play the old tunes, even though, is this Cardiacs really? And even though I have to be a little bit contentious, there are certain people around that could have been doing that were connected with Cardiacs, and I didn't know why. I would love to know why that is the case. You know, maybe if we all pool our ideas together, we could come out to see why, you know, not everybody was involved in it. I don't know what that is. Maybe someone can put it into the comments. So yeah, pool your ideas and see if you can come up with that. So Cardiacs, the fact that the songs are there, the tunes are there, the spirit is there, and the scarcity is there, and everybody wants to know, and I want to know about it. And I got the new Cardiacs album and listened to it to death, and it's a difficult album. I would have probably got more out of the new Deep Purple album, which is great and does have some good tunes on it, but the Yes album doesn't. You see where we go with this? It's like that. So they're still relevant. Now, I can't believe this because I think this band had become irrelevant. But now they're relevant. They're the most relevant band on the planet at the moment. Which band is this? It's Rush. Right? Nobody can leave them alone. Right? They don't have to do any marketing. They don't have to do any PR. Right? They just don't have to. Everybody's doing it for them. Everyone wants to know every last bit of it. Right? Why? Because it's the same, but it's not. Now, Rush could write a bloody song. If nobody mentions this, they could write songs. They are master songwriters. And so those songs we want to hear, but there's no new album. Now for me, you know, over the last 30 years or so, they were just basically churning one album out the other, and I was listening to them, and they never quite had that thing. Something that seeped away for me when it came to Rush. And some Rush fans love these new albums. You know, I think Vapor Trails and Clockwork Angels seem to be the ones that I get told regularly I should go and listen to. And I've listened to them. There's something that it doesn't seem to tick the box that the original Rush had from the first album up to singles. We've talked about this a long time now. Neil Peart, who is like he's the brains behind Rush. And Alex is like the heart, and Geddy's like the spinal cord that's joining it all up and going out and into the world and feeling and all that type of stuff. And in that way, they form a whole body, those three. And then Neil's gone. And not only Neil's gone, that Neil, you watch, not that before he ends up dying, which I feel prematurely. What was he, 67 years old, way too young, 9 years older than me. Oh God, it's awful. But he also loses his family, he goes through all of that, you know. When he comes back after getting lessons with Freddie Studer, and when he comes back, it's never quite the same. And I felt there was something missing, you know, and I bought the Rush in Rio and I bought the R50 out DVDs. I watched them to death and I kept thinking, why aren't I getting from this what I get from Exit Stage Left or All the World's a Stay or even Show of Hands? Where's the fire gone? It's like the fire had gone out. But the fire's back. Who's brought it back for them? It looks cheap. It's Annika, you know, who looks like some sort of Viking maiden, stepping forth from the myths of Prague to take the chair. Like that one, you know, that kills, you know, in Lord of the Rings when they have the big battle. You know that battle, not the Battle of the Five Armies, the one, you know, the big battle, and then that nasty one comes out, doesn't he? You know, you know that we all nerdy prog fans, you know the one. Neil Peart would have known these names because he was a bad Tolkien fan. You know the nasty king, what's he called? The Witch King of something or other. The Witch King of something or other comes out, doesn't he? You know, and no one can beat him, no man can kill him. But this sort of Viking type Ice Maiden steps forth, gets the sword, sticks it right down in the Witch King's face. Right? Now, the Witch King here is representing, in my video, irrelevance. Can you see? So the Witch King is irrelevance. It's coming, it's threatening. That battle is Rush fighting the dark forces of irrelevance, right? You know, and how can we solve this? And then Annika comes forward with her sort of incredible chops and being a monster drummer, but looking like an Ice Maiden at the same time. So the fan base who aren't quite sure how to deal with the feminine, never have been. I mean, this is the great. I mean, I can't explain the genius of getting a girl into Rush, right? Imagine you are some incel nerdy type. Imagine like we were. And I'd go around to my mates, you know, little pack of beer, my Rush album. We go there and we chat with each other and have a laugh and we joke, you know. And then as you get older, this sort of meeting you have where you just sit there and talk about, you know, who was the best James Bond and, you know, what went wrong with Star Wars. You know, that sort of Rush talk you would have if you're a younger man. You know, all that type of stuff. So you sit there talking and then you're thinking, I'm getting too old for this. I'm grown out. I can't be arsed doing this. And then one day someone brings a girl along. There she is, turns up, right? She's talking about all girly stuff, but she also knows about Star Wars and she also knows who the best James Bond is. And she's even got some bloody fags. That's what Annika represents to the Rush audience. They love her being there. Right, so bloody Ian Anderson, listen to what I'm saying. Get yourself a wench. Right? Not saying Annika's a wench. Calling Annika a wench seems a little bit sexist to me. I mean wench in the old English terms. That's what I mean by Ian Anderson. I'm not just calling them a wench, you know. I had, when in the 1980s when I was growing up, we, in a sort of very Midlands type of yobby way, used to call the girls at my school wenches. Oi, wench! It was always offensive. But we had an English teacher. Well, what was his name? He had a nervous breakdown in the end. But a little bald-headed, but he was very, very English, very, very posh. And he used to play the organ over at Great Whitley. If you went to my school, you know the bloke, what was he called? Little bald bloke. And anyway, we were in the class one day, and some yob calls some girl wench. Oi, wench, pass us a pencil sharpener. And he went, I do love the use of the old English wench in this way. I think it's great that you young people have been able to bring that back in such a kind and friendly manner. Right, who have I got next time? We've only got 3 to go. What time is it? Bloody hell, it's going to be an hour long. So the next one I've got is Bill Bruford. I respect Bill. He gets to 60 years old, he looks around, he goes, this is not for me, I've had enough, done my thing, I'm going to go and do something else. I'll go and do my PhD in philosophy. I've got other things to do. I got other fish to fry. Off he's been frying his own fish, you know. Then, out of nowhere, he decides to come back. But he could have had another project and got some star players in, called it Bruford. He could have got bloody Jeff Berlin maybe on the bass. We'd all be interested, you know. He could have been doing some of the old tunes. But no, he looks around and he sees this thing which is this thing that exists on the internet. He's aware that if he just went and found some local guys he wants to play with, just go out and improvise, play some jazz, improvise, make the music up, that the internet itself would propel it along. He doesn't have to sell it because the internet will sell it. He doesn't have to make it an aurora, you know. I mean, if he went to Steve Howe and says, I'll do the drums on the next album, they'd be sacking that bloke off in 5 seconds, but he won't do it because he is still, even though he's like in his 70s, his late 70s, because I interviewed him, he is still interested in how to make music right now. And Bill always has did that from when he jumped ship from Yes, the biggest band in the world at the time, over to King Crimson. He's always done this. He's always been searching for something that is interesting for him to do. And because he's maintained that, he's still relevant, and we're all talking about him. And, you know, we're going and watching the videos, and, you know, I wish I could have caught him on that thing. I nearly did, but I was a bit tired. He played up in Wolverhampton, and I was going to go up, and I was a bit tired. Done a lot. I'd been gigging and all that. So Bruford, he's still doing stuff. As is, we mentioned the Stones in the irrelevant, but the Beatles are relevant. Now, Paul McCartney, I think he was erring on irrelevant. His last album, McCartney 3, where he got down and played all the instruments, he realised that's where he had to go. He suddenly clocked it. Just make a Paul McCartney album. Just make an album. Simple. Don't over-egg it. Don't try and do it. Just write some songs. Now he can write a bloody song. And this new album that he's done, the Boys of Dungeon Lane, is a wonderful album. I mean, he's relevant and everybody's talking about it. Great songs. Do what you want. Not trying to over-egg the pudding. Right? It's great. And the last guy that I'm going to shout out, because I'm always been a little bit facetious when it comes to this man, you know, winding him up a little bit at a distance, I suppose. But my ex-employer from back in the old days, Robert Plant, and if you're playing the special game, yes, here we are. Took a long time, 3/4 of an hour, and I've just mentioned Robert Plant. But I believe Robert has remained relevant. He is one of the biggest rock stars in history with a huge legacy, and that legacy is a difficult legacy because Led Zeppelin, unlike Queen and Yes, never did write those kinds of songs. Sometimes they did. Thank You is an example of a song like that, as is All of My Love. They could do it and they did do it, but they weren't known for it so much. They were much more known for chutzpah, bulgy trousers, rock riffs, and a sort of fiery virtuosity that pulled together, you know, New Orleans funk, the blues, you know, Tolkien-esque landscapes. It was all that type of stuff. It was all very standing on front of the Viking ship with your foot on the side and your hair blown in the wind. And you would have thought when you get old, you have to just move away from that. Well, I think Robert has negotiated it incredibly well. And I'm quite proud that the band that I had with him, the Priory of Brian, although nowhere near one of his important, you know, things he's ever done in his life, but that was the point. Those 2 years, he put a stop to what he was doing. He hung up the bloody bulgy trousers and the whole thing. Not fully, but he basically walked away from that and explored different ideas. And what he was exploring was the song in its simplest form. And I'm very proud to have been in the room and I have tried my best. Even though back then I didn't understand the song. I didn't understand the bloody song. And I'm very proud of what I did in that group. And then from that point on, Robert has really, I believe, become something that he actually wasn't in Led Zeppelin, which is a balladeer. His voice has got lower. His experience of how to deliver a song is unmatched. That voice is rich and experienced and beautiful. And I think he has done the opposite of a lot of these irrelevant bands by staying close to the source of great songwriting. How has he done that? By at once researching back, looking at where, in terms of the 20th century, great songs come from, how they operate. And the research he's done is in performing those songs. And then when you are in that place with those songs around you, then stretching out with the aesthetics that you love, all the stuff he loves, English folk music, you know, the blues, 60s psychedelia, you know, North African music, just forging out and then coming back and forging out. And recently, what's kept him in check, which I think started with Alison Krauss, is having that female vocal harmonising with him. He really has done something special, and I think he's unique of that generation of absolute rock gods that were in those bands of how to negotiate the future. In fact, I think he's the only one who has done it well. So Robert, if you're watching there, I've actually given you a compliment rather than just being annoying gnat around your rock stardom, as I normally am. But, you know, I would hate for people to be saying that I'm just some sort of sycophant and that you can't take a little bit of ribbing, because I know you can. But that's what I think. You've all had a lot of sups of your drink because of the amount of times I mentioned him. That has been my video, which looks at relevance. It has been at once silly and serious at the same time. I hope you loved it, and you will put a like on it, and you will say, in amongst all that silliness, there was some words of wisdom, because I'm a very clever man. Thank you. See you on the next video.
Andy Edwards.